You're being erased. Slowly. Quietly. And the worst part is, you keep showing up anyway, hoping they'll finally see you. But they won't. Not like this. Not while you keep making yourself available. Not while you keep explaining yourself, waiting for them to change, absorbing their distance like it's somehow your fault. What if everything you have been doing to get closer is actually the exact reason they keep pulling away? Stay with me, because what I'm about to share is going to completely shift how you see this dynamic. And more importantly, it's going to shift how you see yourself in it. Before we go any further, I need you to do something. Drop the word clarity in the comments right now. Not later, right now. Because if you're in this situation, clarity is the one thing you've been starved of, and I want to know you're here for it. This video is for the ones who've been confused, dismissed, and left wondering what they did wrong. You did nothing wrong. Let's talk about what's actually going on. Here's what nobody tells you when you fall for an avoidant. They're not distant because they don't feel things. They're distant because they feel things so deeply that it terrifies them. And the way they manage that terror is by controlling the closeness in every relationship they have. They expand and contract. They let you in just enough to keep you hoping, and then they pull back just enough to keep you chasing. And here's the brutal truth underneath all of that. They only begin to assign value to something when they believe they could lose it. That's not a manipulation tactic. That's a survival pattern rooted in early attachment wounds. But understanding it doesn't mean you should accept being treated as if your feelings are an inconvenience. Understanding it means you can finally stop taking it personally, and then you can do something about it. Let's start at the beginning, because we need to understand what we're dealing with before we talk about walking away. An avoidant person developed their attachment style in an environment where emotional needs were either ignored, dismissed, or met with overwhelm. Maybe they had a parent who was emotionally unavailable. Maybe expressing feelings led to conflict or rejection. Maybe they learned early that needing people was dangerous, that vulnerability led to pain. So they built a wall, a very sophisticated, very convincing wall. And here's what makes it so confusing for you. That wall doesn't look like a wall from the outside. It looks like independence. It looks like someone who's got it together. Someone who doesn't need much and doesn't ask for much. And in the beginning, that's magnetic. You're drawn to their self-sufficiency. You admire how they seem so calm, so unaffected. But then you start to realize that calm isn't peace. It's distance. And that distance starts to feel personal. Because every time you try to get closer, they find a reason to step back. You have a deep conversation, and the next day, they're colder than usual. You express a need, and suddenly they're too busy. You plan something meaningful, and they forget, or they cancel, or they show up checked out. And then, because you're someone who cares, because you're someone who believes in the relationship, you start adjusting. You soften your needs. You stop asking for as much. You tell yourself you're being low maintenance, that you're giving them space. But what you're actually doing is slowly disappearing. And the devastating irony is that the more you disappear for them, the less they value your presence. Because you've trained them to believe that your presence requires nothing of them, that you'll always be there regardless of how they show up. This is the core wound of loving an avoidant. You shrink yourself trying to keep them, and in the shrinking, you lose the very thing that made them curious about you in the first place. Your aliveness, your confidence, your willingness to take up space. Now I need to say something important here, and I need you to really hear it. Walking away from an avoidant is not a strategy, or at least it shouldn't be. If the only reason you're creating distance is to make them chase you, you're still playing the same game. You're still organizing your behavior around their reaction, and they will feel that. An avoidant, even one who struggles to read emotional cues in real time, has a deeply sensitive radar for inauthenticity. They've spent their whole life reading environments for safety. They will sense that you're performing independence rather than living it, and it won't create the shift you're hoping for. So what I'm about to walk you through is not a manipulation game. It's a genuine reclamation of yourself. And yes, the byproduct of that reclamation is often that the avoidant finally wakes up. But that byproduct is not the point. You are the point. Let's talk about why walking away actually works, psychologically. because this is important. Avoidants maintain closeness through a particular internal mechanism called deactivation. When someone gets too close, when intimacy starts to feel threatening, they unconsciously deploy strategies to increase emotional distance. They get busy. They become critical of you. They focus on your flaws. They tell themselves they don't really need you. They remind themselves of all the ways relationships are limiting. And this works for them, right up until the moment you're no longer close enough to activate that fear. When you stop reaching, when you stop pursuing, when you stop making yourself the solution to their loneliness. The deactivation mechanism has nothing to fuel it, and something shifts. The longing that they've been suppressing starts to surface. The value they placed on you but never expressed starts to become visible to them, sometimes for the first time. But here's what's crucial. This only happens if you've actually left emotionally, not just physically. Not if you're waiting by your phone hoping they'll text. Not if you're telling your friends you're Saunders moving on while still checking their social media 3 times a day. Real walking away is internal before it is external. It starts with a decision about your own worth. So let's talk about how to actually do this. And I mean the real version, not the performance version. The first thing you have to do is stop explaining yourself. This is one of the biggest mistakes people make in relationships with avoidance. You over-explain your feelings. You over-justify your needs. You write the long texts trying to make them understand where you're coming from. You think that if you just phrase it the right way, they'll finally get it. But here's what's actually happening when you do that. You're teaching them that your limits are negotiable, that if they stay silent long enough or push back hard enough, you'll eventually soften your position and explain it away. Avoidants are not going to be talked into valuing you. They cannot intellectually receive their way into emotional investment. So stop arguing your case. State what you need, once, clearly, without a lengthy defense attached to it. And then let your actions speak. The second thing is to genuinely rebuild your life. Not as a show, not to post on social media and hope they see it, but because your life had been emptying out to make room for them and you need to fill it back up. Re-engage with the friendships you let drift. Pick up the creative work you abandoned. Go to the places you used to love going. Make commitments to yourself and keep them. Because here's what happens when you genuinely start living your life again. You stop being emotionally available in the way that was slowly suffocating both of you. Your energy shifts. And while you can't control whether the avoidant notices, what you can control is that you stop centering them in every thought you have. This matters more than people realize. When you're anxiously attached to an avoidant, and many people who end up in these dynamics are, there's a near constant internal monitoring happening. You're tracking their mood. You're interpreting their silences. You're running scenarios in your mind about what they might be thinking or feeling. That internal monitoring consumes enormous amounts of energy. Energy that belongs to your own life. When you redirect that energy back to yourself, everything changes. Not just for them, for you. The third thing is to start tolerating the silence instead of rushing to fill it. This is where people fall apart. The avoidant goes quiet, and the anxiety becomes overwhelming, and you reach out. You say something casual, something low stakes, just to break the silence. But what you've done is handed them back the control. You've confirmed that you will always blink first, that you cannot tolerate the distance. And that tells them, unconsciously, that they are safe to maintain the distance because you'll always come back. Learning to sit in the discomfort of silence, to let it exist without immediately reacting to it, is one of the most powerful things you can do. Not because it makes them miss you, though sometimes it does, but because it teaches you something about yourself. It teaches you that the silence is survivable, that you don't need their presence to regulate your nervous system. That is self-sufficiency. Real self-sufficiency. The fourth thing is to stop rewarding inconsistency. Think about how many times you've done this. They disappear for a while, and then they resurface, warm and attentive and almost like the person you fell for. And you feel relieved. The relief is so enormous that you don't address what just happened. You just absorb them back in and carry on. And they learn, again, that they can disappear and return, and nothing will be required of them. You have to be willing to address the pattern. Not in an accusatory, emotional outburst, but in a calm, clear statement of what you observed and what you need differently. And if they dismiss it or minimize it or turn it around on you, then you have the information. You don't need to keep testing the hypothesis. You have the data. The fifth thing is to practice what it feels like to actually want to leave, not just threaten to. Because so many people in these dynamics use leaving as a lever. I'm done, they say, and they mean it in the moment. But then the avoidance softens slightly, and the threat dissolves, and everyone goes back to the same patterns. Real walking away requires you to feel in your body what it would mean to actually exit this dynamic, to sit with that, to grieve it, and then to make a choice from that place rather than from panic or manipulation. That kind of leaving, even if you ultimately decide to stay, changes how you show up, because it shows you that you have a choice. And people who know they have a choice don't negotiate from desperation. Now here's what tends to happen when you start doing these things authentically. And I want to be very careful here because I don't want you to walk away from this thinking I'm out guaranteeing a specific outcome. What I'm telling you is what typically happens. Not as a rule, not as a promise, but as a pattern. When you stop pursuing, stop over-explaining, stop absorbing their inconsistency, something shifts in the avoidant. The psychological pressure they've been managing through deactivation changes, because you're no longer providing the closeness they've been pushing away. The longing that lives underneath their defenses starts to surface. They start to wonder. They start to notice your absence in a way they never noticed your presence. They may reach out. They may try to re-engage. They may show up differently, at least temporarily. And this is the moment where you need to be the most careful, because the pull to rush back in will be intense. The relief of their attention after the withdrawal will feel like water in a desert. And if you're not grounded, if you haven't actually done the internal work that walking away requires, you will go straight back to the same dynamic, and they will go straight back to the same behavior, because nothing has actually changed. You're back, and they've confirmed that the pattern is stable. If the avoidant does reach out, this is what you want to pay attention to. Are they reaching out with genuine curiosity about you? Are they willing to acknowledge the pattern and actually talk about it? Are they showing up with more consistency than before? Or are they just uncomfortable with the loss of the familiar and reaching out to restore their comfort, not to restore the relationship? There's a big difference, and you need to be clear-eyed enough to see it. Consistency over time is the only meaningful signal with an avoidant. Not words, not grand gestures, not one good week. Consistency over time, and you have to be willing to wait for that evidence rather than interpreting the first sign of warmth as a permanent change. Let's also talk about what you need to prepare yourself for, because this conversation is incomplete without honesty. Some avoidants do not shift. Some people, by the time you reach the point of actually walking away, have been in deactivation mode for so long that your absence feels like relief rather than loss. Not because you're not worth it, but because the avoidance defenses have become so thick, so habitual, that vulnerability feels genuinely impossible to them. And those are the people you have to be willing to grieve, not save. There is a version of this where walking away is not the beginning of a new chapter in the Maas. On marginally serious Idivru, it is simply the end. And you have to hold space for that possibility. Because if you can only walk away with the secret condition that they chase you, then you're not walking away. You're leashing yourself and pretending it's freedom. Letting go of an avoidant, genuinely letting go, means accepting that the relationship may not survive in the form you hoped for. It means being willing to choose your peace over your longing. It means releasing the fantasy of who they could be if they would just let their guard down, and dealing honestly with who they have consistently shown you they are. That is painful. Profoundly painful. And I'm not asking you to minimize that pain. I'm asking you to stop letting that pain make decisions for you. Here's what happens to you when you do this work, whether the avoidant comes back or not. You stop feeling desperate. That particular quality of anxious hunger that has been living in your chest, that constant wondering if you're enough, that compulsive monitoring of their behavior, it starts to quiet. Not all at once, but gradually, because you're no longer outsourcing your sense of worth to someone who is constitutionally unavailable to provide it. You're taking it back. And that shift, that internal recalibration, is the whole point. You deserve to be in a relationship where your presence is celebrated rather than managed, where you don't have to calculate how much is too much, where you can express a need without triggering someone's flight response. That relationship is possible, But it is not possible as long as you're pouring your energy into someone who has made it clear, through their patterns rather than their words, that intimacy is something they manage rather than something they welcome. Now I want to talk about how you carry yourself when you start this process, because your demeanor matters enormously. Walking away does not mean being cold. It doesn't mean punishing them. It doesn't mean making sure they see you thriving so they feel bad. All of those approaches are still organized around their perception of you. And as long as you're performing for their benefit, you haven't actually walked away. You've just changed the performance. Genuine walking away looks like warmth without need. It looks like being able to speak to them without urgency. It looks like having a full life that doesn't have a starring role reserved for them anymore. It looks like being genuinely okay, even on the days that are hard. Not performing okay, but actually building the architecture of okay from the inside out. This takes time. Please give yourself that time. The anxious attachment response that has likely been running underneath this entire dynamic, for you, doesn't dissolve in a week. It dissolves through repeated experience of surviving the silence, repeated experience of your own completeness, repeated experience of choosing yourself, when every old pattern is screaming at you to choose them instead. And here is the thing about avoidance that most people never get told. When they encounter someone who is genuinely at peace, genuinely whole, genuinely not organizing their life around the avoidance approval, something in the avoidant recognizes that. They recognize it because wholeness is what they've been trying to protect in themselves all along. Their independence, their self-sufficiency, the very qualities that drew you to them, those are all attempts at achieving the same wholeness from a defensive posture rather than a secure one. When you show up with genuine wholeness without needing them to confirm it, you become the most compelling thing they've ever encountered. Because you're showing them a version of security they've never let themselves feel. That might reach them. It might not, but it will absolutely reach you. So here is the summary of what this actually looks like in practice. You stop explaining and over-justifying. You state your needs clearly and without lengthy defense. You rebuild your life with genuine investment, not performance. You tolerate the silence and let it teach you about your own resilience. You stop rewarding inconsistency by absorbing re-entries without acknowledgement. You prepare yourself for the reality that this might end, and you make peace with that possibility. You carry yourself through all of it with warmth and completeness, not coldness and performance. If they come back, you pay attention to patterns, not promises. If they don't, you trust that what you've built inside yourself in this process is the foundation of something far better than what you had. You were never too much. You were never not enough. You were in a dynamic that required you to disappear, and you don't have to do that anymore. The avoidant in your life may or may not change, but you can. And that is where all of this begins and ends. Not with them, with you. It was always with you.